Hello, my name is Joshua Crabtree. I'm an education student from the University of South Dakota. I'm sitting here today with a veteran from the Gulf War. He has asked to remain anonymous, so we have put a voice modulation over his side of this interview, and also will only be referring to him as anonymous in the paper and resorting to pronouns for during the interview and for the rest of the people that he mentions. Um, I really appreciate you sitting down to talk with me today. Just take your time. There are no right or wrong answers. I just want you to feel comfortable saying what you really think and how you really feel. Take your time. There's no rush. I just want to get the most genuine answers as possible. All right. Well, with that being said, I guess my first question for you is: can you tell me a little bit about your early life and sort of from as far back as you can remember up until uh, say the day that you enlisted.
Yeah, absolutely. I was born in Columbus, Ohio. I was the youngest of four children. My parents. I had three brothers. Um, well, I guess the best place to start is yeah, we moved around from Columbus to Newark, Ohio, like three or four times during my early childhood. Uh, just wherever work took my dad. Um, we were typical kids. We collected baseball cards together. Uh, we rode bikes around town, harassed the neighbors. Just the usual. Um, I guess that was pretty much it. I had a girlfriend. I liked baseball. Just your typical teenage boy. When I was 16, though, my parents. I came home one day and my parents told me that they had a calling that they wanted to travel the country and preach in small churches around in small towns around the country. And so that's what we did. They pulled us out of school. All three of my older brothers too. We were all pretty close together. Um, the oldest had graduated at that point, but the rest of us we were still in school. We packed up our '63 Ford and we just drove south, man. Not all there was to it. We were we were pretty close knit group. Um, we headed south, specifically down to like Alabama and stuff, and just a new day. Every day brought like a new adventure. We we trade baseball cards wherever while Dad was driving. And it was pretty crazy to think back on. You know, we were pretty poor, so it's just we didn't really stay in motel rooms a lot. But that's actually a funny story. Being the youngest, I got the short end of the stick, so like mom and dad, they'd always take the front two seats, and uh, my oldest brother, sorry, I don't want to use his name. Um, my oldest brother, he would get the back bench all to himself. I guess he had the family dog back there, but he sort of sat up on the window, like in that back window bay. Then two older brothers, little kids, they would stay in the middle bench, and then there were no more seats, so I flipped outside on the car roof. Like, I'd take my pillow and sleeping bag out there, stare up at the stars, and enjoy my time. It was kind of fun, though. Like, that was my own little world. Occasionally, you'd hear dad snore. My older brother, he'd almost use his name. He'd roll over on the back bench or something, and the car would move. But, yeah, no, it's just, that was life for 2 years. Yeah. Um, there's some stories in and out of there, but nothing really that stands out. I mean, there was a time that we got, semi chased out of town because the oldest kid, my oldest brother, he was a big boy. He liked to eat, and we went to a potluck, and apparently the church thought that we took too much of food before anybody else could get some, so they sort of semi chased us out of town that day. mom was kind of the only one that could like talk him down, but nobody got hurt, so it was alright. Yeah, like, but sleeping in cars, that was the main thing that I remember from that time. And occasionally a church would like, you know, a church would offer. We never asked. My dad just wasn't that type of guy. But the church would occasionally offer to pay for like a motel room for us and stuff like that. And whenever that happened, it was like Christmas. We just got to pay. We got stretched out a little bit, got to horse around. Me and my siblings like to think of ourselves like rock stars. We'd trash the motel room, and mom would get mad and tell us to clean it all up. But yeah, no, we were just a rambunctious group of kids, man. We just pretty laid back, but not all you can expect. We really were just the average family. Like, nothing too wild. But yeah, that was life for 2 years. Just new day, new town, new church, man. Blow in, blow up, blow out. That's all it was.
You said that you were a mechanic in the Navy, right? So, what led you to want to continue along that skill set? Like, was there a specific time that you realized that that's what you wanted to do?
Yeah, absolutely. It actually came from the time where we were traveling down south. See, Dad, he was book smart. He was not good at, trade occupations and stuff like that. But, I don't know, growing up, me and my brothers, we'd ride our bikes all around town, and, if something broke, we had to fix it, because Lord knows Dad couldn't. And so we'd work on our bikes, we'd find a junker bike, abandoned in the street, and steal a tire off of it. Not like a good bike who somebody owned, but like it was just a trash bike all rusted out, and we'd take a wheel off of it, and just put it on ours. Learned how to do it, stuff like that. But I'd say the real like moment that I knew that's something I wanted to do was during that time. We were traveling around, and our car broke down, and it was a hot summer day in Alabama, and we were trapped on the highway, man. Like, so, Dad got out, popped the hood, and obviously that shit was like hieroglyphics to him, so, he just took a step back and saved a few choice words under his breath, and then, I don't know, I sort of got out of the car and took a look at it, just because I'm a nosy little kid, and I see that, like a cap on a piece of the car. At that, it was the radiator, but at that point I didn't know that. Like, I saw that thing was blown off, and so and hot water was shooting out of it, and I'm like, I don't know. I sort of just put two and two together. That maybe that isn't supposed to be shooting hot water out of it. Maybe that's supposed to have a lid. So while Mom and Dad were arguing about that, I sort of went to the back of the car, got into Mom's bag, grabbed the lid off of one of her makeup containers, and then we always had like a little repair kit for minor stuff in the back of the car. So grabbed a roll of duct tape, and went back to the radiator and put the cap on top of the makeup cap where the old cap used to be. And it was a little too big, so I used the duct tape to create a seal. And I filled it up with water beforehand, but yeah, it worked. After a couple minutes, the car cooled down a bit, and then we got going, kept on moving. And my dad wasn't one to ever sing us praises or anything, but I don't know, he was more of a non-verbal affirmation kind of guy. It was sort of I'm sitting in the back seat, and he looks at me through the rearview mirror, and sort of just slowly nods his head, and I'm just like, yeah, I did it. And I'd say that was definitely the moment. Like, I'm like, ooh, that's nice. I like being the guy that can come into a situation where nobody knows what to do, and then I can just, I mean, I don't know what the right phrase to use is. I don't want to speak out on it. And sort of just, fudge it into working, like, to save, the hell with this, and get it a really, back alley fix, if you will. Like, it works, And at the end of the day, yeah, no, it definitely didn't have the same lifespan as a radiator cap, but shit, it got us to the next town. It worked. But keeping going with, like, the whole story of how I got to enlist to the Navy, we were down in Alabama for a couple of years, or, like, the South. Like, we went to Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Florida. We went everywhere, man. Then we went west, over to the West Coast, Cali, Oregon, Nevada. Dipped our toe into Washington. Didn't really stay too long. We didn't like it there. But yeah, then we made our way back east to the Midwest, and that's where I met my wife. Met my wife in Alma, Nebraska. It's 2 years after we left. Like 2 years and some change. Yeah, it's funny to think back to, because here we come, just a ragtag group of, people that just look like a bunch of hippies, man. We'd kind of pull up in our station wagon, unannounced, to this small church. I don't know why they let us preach there. Like, thinking back to it, it's just like, imagine you're running a place, and a station wagon full of big kids. We were big kids. It's just crazy to look back at pictures, but, like, we were just so big. And just tell them that, hey, we're going to come in and we're going to preach. Is that cool? And we got so many yeses. Like, there were some no's. But there were so many yeses. And it's just so crazy to look back on. But yeah, no, we got to Alma. Just us and our hippie station wagon. We get in there, and sure enough, there's Sarah. Oh shit. Can't say that. Screw it. Sarah. Yeah, there's Sarah. And, like, she's just caught my eye immediately, and I couldn't walk away. But, I enlisted, like, I had to get out of there. I'd spent 2 years sleeping on the roof of a car, constantly being stuck in the back seat with my just giant older brother, and, like, I needed some space, man. Like, yeah, Sarah was incredible, and I very quickly knew that I wanted to marry her, but, sometimes you just need to step away, and I enlisted on my 18th birthday, into the Navy, and got out of there. Yeah, so that's the story, man. That's how I got to, that's how I enlisted.
I mean, that must have been tough, right? I mean, you grew up around your family and were so close to them for these last 2 years. Um, was that like, was that the most difficult part about being in the military, or was there something else that really, stuck out to you?
I'm sure it was tough. I mean, like you just said, like I said before, this is the only family that I had. We left everybody else back in Ohio. It's just, I'd spent the past 2 years with them, and I don't know, it's just, I loved them. I love them to death. I still do. I mean, but I don't know, man. It's just being so close together. You don't always see the best side of people. Space is great. Like, make sure that you see each other when you want to see each other. You don't always see the bad sides of each other, you know? But when you're so close together, 24/7, you see all sides of people. And with some people, that's great. But family, no, that's not great always. It's just not. Like, anybody will tell you that. It's just the way it works. I don't know. Yeah, it was tough. But at the same time, I knew I was setting up a life for myself. I knew that I had something that when I got back to my family, got back to Sarah, I had a trade. I had something that I could build off of. I had something that I could set up my family with, that I could provide for them. And I don't know, I'm a pretty old-fashioned guy. That's what I believe I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to provide for my family. And that's a burden sometimes. And yeah, sometimes I don't want to do it, but that's what makes you a good man, is that you're willing to take those sacrifices. You gotta work hard sometimes. You gotta work hard all the time.
What's one experience from your time in the Navy that you just, no matter how much you try, or no matter how long, you'll just never forget it? It just sticks out to you.
It's definitely the noise. No question. I've got a bit of tinnitus in my ears, and just that constant ringing, and it's wild, man. But you're on the USS Bunker Hill, that's a missile cruiser. So it's just, the noise was just wild. It's not like, it's not like war where you got bombs going off and guns and there's like sharp noises all around you. It's just a constant, dull, loud rumble in your ears at all times. And, you start to... that's a funny story. You have to get used to talking loud, and that's actually kind of a funny story. When I got home, and back to Sarah, we went out on a date, and we got into a bit of an argument, because she thought I was yelling at her. And it took me a minute to realize, oh, shit, no, I'm just talking loud. I'm just talking loud, Like, I didn't realize that after a year or so on the Bunker Hill that, you get used to talking loud. It's just the way it works. But, yeah, no, just the noise, man. Like I said, I got that tinnitus now, and, so it's not like I'll ever be able to forget that. But, there are upsides. There are always upsides to the downsides, man.
What's something that you really miss about the military?
I'd probably have to say it's my buddies. My peers, my fellow mechanics. It would be hard to find a bigger group of idiots. It's a miracle we didn't. It's a good thing that we were mechanics and not officers on that ship. We were sunk that bitch in like a minute. It was just wild, we were just joking and pranking each other every day. It's a miracle that we didn't do something stupid. And, obviously we had our commanding officer, and, but we just avoided him. Whenever we were left alone, you best believe we were pranking one another. And, it's just, it's fun because, you prank somebody or somebody pranks you, and they retaliate or you retaliate, and it's just builds on each other until one day, I guess I started this one, but this mechanic, I don't want to say his name, but he was so OCD, I guess is a good way to put it, with his, tools. On his tool belt, he had a specific place for each one of his tools. And like the rest of us, man, we just throw that shit in there. We don't care where it goes. We do all that stuff. So I took his tool out one day, like one night while he was sleeping, and I went to one of the breaks, like one of the break rooms, I guess what like most people call it, and I took some duct tape and taped up the bottom to create like a seal, and then just kept his tools inside and just filled that bitch with water, man, and then walked over to one of the ice chests and froze it while he was sleeping. So he comes in the next morning, he's all stomping mad. He's like, alright, who stole my tools and all that? And I'm just like, go look in the freezer, man. he gets mad. He's so mad, man. He's just so, like, just cussing and screaming, and all his tools are frozen. And it's just, it was just so much fun. And yeah, I don't know, man. It's hilarious.
So you mentioned retaliations whenever practical jokes happen. Did that mechanic retaliate?
Oh, you bet your ass he retaliated. Like, it was that night, actually. Like, after he found it, we went through our day of stuff. He had to take an ice pick to his belt and shit to get his tools out. But, yeah, no, that night, I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and I couldn't get out of bed. Like, I found that they had saran wrapped me, my blanket, and my mattress. Like, just wrapped it around, like, the top of my blanket so it got me, myself, and my mattress because they went underneath to the bottom of my bunk frame. And they just wrapped me shut, like, wrapped me tight to it. Like, just, they left my face off, obviously, because I would have woke up from that. But I couldn't get out. It was just, I mean, in retrospect, brilliant. Like, that's a good move. Like, I should give him more props for that. But, yeah, no, it took me a good hour, I'd say, to get out of that thing. Like, just slowly working myself out. Like, I had to pull out the blanket to give myself room, and that took forever, man. And, CEO wasn't too happy with that. But, you live.
All right, so you had a good camaraderie with your fellow mechanics. I could see that. Like, you guys were joking around, pranking each other. But at the end of the day, I mean, this was a war you guys were in. So, I mean, was that hanging over you guys? Like, what were your opinions on the conflict?
Now, see, that's an interesting question. Because, like, I don't know, obviously I knew that a war was going on, but I was sort of just outside of it, I guess is a good way to put it. Like, I guess the best way that I can phrase it was I felt like I was the grease on the gears that were spinning the war along. Like you have people on front lines shooting guns, you got people 2 decks up, launching missiles, and I'm down doing a PM on one of the backup generators. It's just I wasn't the one, killing people. Like, that wasn't my job. I was there to make sure this war machine kept running. And I don't know, man. It's just I had bigger fish to fry than fight a war for some guy. I wasn't too phased by it. Like I understand that war is something that happens, and I'm sure it happens for a reason. But I don't know the reason, and I don't want to know the reason. Like, there's a reason why I was a mechanic. Like, and not in general. It's just I don't want to know that stuff. There's larger bodies making these decisions, man. And as long as I get to go home at the end of the day, like at the end of this war, and go back to Sarah and start a family, dude, like that's all I care. Like everything words, baby. I just wanna get in, do my job, collect my check, and get home. Like, yeah, that may sound a little selfish, maybe a little insensitive to the men and women who died fighting this war. And I promise you, those are my brothers and sisters. And, you know, I'll cry those tears with their family. But at the end of the day, dude, I had bigger fish to fry. And I don't feel like that was selfish of me. I really don't.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what are your opinions on the relationship between like life in war and life in peace? Like you being so close to the action, you surely, uh, while not having the same perspective as somebody who is like on the front lines and stuff like that, you certainly have a valuable perspective. Like, what's your relationship like with life in war and life in peace?
I don't know, man. I mean, like I said, I'm okay. I'm okay with having some things in life being bigger than me. Like, that's a hard thing for a lot of people to swallow. But this world doesn't revolve around me or my family. Like, I am a small fish in a big pond, bro. Like, I, there are way bigger powers that decide when it's time to go to war and when it's time to not. Like, I understand that the only reason why I get to go home and be with my family at the end of the day is because the United States offers me those freedoms. They guarantee me those freedoms. And that, in order to have those freedoms, certain sacrifices need to be made. And that's a job. That's a job. And somebody's got to do that job. And like, yeah, I was never the one to fire the gun or shoot the missiles, but somebody did. Somebody had to. And I have the utmost sympathy for them and their families, especially if they didn't make it back. Like, that sucks. It's a job that needs to be done and to maintain those freedoms for the rest. And that is one of the most selfless things that you can do. But, I don't know, man. Like, life in peace, that's life in war, My opinion of it is that it's something that needs to be done, but I'm just not the guy to do it. But you bet your ass, I never skipped a step on those PMs, bro. Like, I had to make sure that if something broke on that ship, like me being in that car in Alabama, like, I had to be the one to step up, get that shit fixed so we can keep this thing moving. But, I don't know, man. That's life in war. Life in peace. It's beautiful. I'm so happy. Like, I have my wife, I have my kids, man. Like, I have a job. Like, I'm a generator tech, which is funny because that's exactly what I've been trained my entire life for. And I go in, basically, like, what used to be chess is now checkers, and I go in, do my job, get my money, go home to a nice warm meal. And that's America, man. That's what hundreds of thousands, millions even, what millions of people have died to maintain. And I'm so happy for it. I can't imagine my life any different. But I guess that's the best way I can describe life in war versus life in peace. I hope that's what you were looking for, anyways.
So you got out of the military then, and what'd you do afterwards? Like, tell me about your life after the military. What were some of the highs and lows?
Well, I got out of the military and went straight back to Alma, you know? I had to go get Sarah. And man, highs and lows. The highs, like highs and lows, man. That explains my life out of the military perfectly. Like looking back on it, like I was so ignorant. Like I thought going into the military, I'm gonna go in, get the skill set I need to build a life for my family, get out, and everything else would just be details. No. I thought all my hard work was done in the military. No. Marriage is far more dangerous of a job than the military. And that was when I was at war, too. Oh, Sarah's getting mad. No, I'm just saying. Look, I'm just saying. I love my wife. I've never been worried I've never been worried that, never been concerned on if I love my wife. It's never been a question. I love her. But I was just constantly worried about providing for her. It's something that's been on my mind. Well, like I said, before I even joined the military, that's why I joined. Is because I want to be able to provide for them. And, at that time I only had 2 kids, but, and my parents and my brothers were over in Grand Island, not too far from Alma, and, I just had my skill set, and I started a business. I figured that's the best way to get going. It's just get out there, start that business, start networking, and get a steady income. But, just because it's the American dream doesn't mean it's a guarantee. I guess that's the best way I could put it. Because my business failed. We were struggling. My dad, he got smoked pretty much all his life. He got diagnosed with lung cancer, and it's just looking back on it, honestly, I was just so much stress and so much on my plate. Just stretched so thin. When the business went out, man, that was probably the toughest time of my life. Because it's just, like I said, I had to have a moment where you look yourself in the mirror and say, I was wrong. I thought military, the training to get to where I was going to be the toughest. No. The training was easy compared to actually doing the thing. Yeah, I had the skill set. I did my job great. But just because you did your job great doesn't mean you're going to be the best priced. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a car that breaks down. Doesn't mean you're not going to have a dad that gets cancer. Shit happens. That's part of the battle, man. You gotta keep going. I mean, that's what I did. That's what I've always done. Sometimes you just gotta take all that weight on your shoulders, lower your head, and trudge on, man. That march of hard work is the most difficult but most rewarding thing a young man or young women, honestly, anybody. It's the hardest but most beneficial thing that anybody can do with their life. It's just to lower your shoulders, or lower your head, take that weight on your shoulders, and say, screw that, we're gonna get through this. And just start walking. If you can't walk, crawl. But you gotta stay moving, man. Gotta stay moving. And eventually we made our way out. I started working for the hospitals there in the area, doing PMs on their generators, fixing it whenever they needed it. And stuff started to move, We got current on all of our bills. Occasionally my boss would give me a raise. I stopped having to worry. That was the toughest part. It's not, like I said, I was just concerned with like providing for my family, and I still am. Like I still provide. Like my mom, my dad, bless his soul, he's passed. But my mom, she's still kicking, and I'm still worried to this day about providing for her. But that constant anxiety simply turned to concern after those things started. The pressure got lessened because I didn't have to worry about where my kids were going to eat the next day. I didn't have to worry if they were going to eat the next day because life was good. Life was good.
So, looking back at your life so far, what are you most proud of?
Definitely my kids, man. How could I not be? I mean, they're great. I love them. We settled down in the South Dakota area after a couple of years, and after Dad passed. And I went wherever work took me. And yeah, I feel bad for moving around, so much, but I can't argue with results, man. They're doing great. The youngest is about to graduate high school. I mean, the two middle girls, they're doing their thing in college. My oldest boy he's married. He's expecting a kid in August. About to be a grandpa. That's a legacy. How can you argue with that?
All right, sir. Well, that's all the questions I have for you. Once again, thank you so much for sitting down and talking to me today. I'll definitely get you a copy of this recording and the paper if you'd like.
Yeah, I definitely like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's all I got for you. So, is there anything that you want to say to close this out?
I guess all I have to say is, the greatest lesson that I wish I learned early in life was what I said about hard work, man. It's just, if you have the will to put your head down and just trudge through the shit, you'll get through it at some point. I truly believe that anybody in life can make it to where they want to be. And the only thing that's stopping you is you. On the bright side, the only thing that can get you out of your way is you. So it's all up to you, man. Just give it a shot. If your life sucks, what do you got to lose, right? Alright. Well, thanks for having me.